Hello, and welcome to GreenBiz Studio. I'm John Schmea, Vice President of Circularity and Senior Analyst here at GreenBiz, and I'm excited to welcome Steve Bradley to the studio. Steve serves as the Vice President of cleantech at Cox Enterprises. Steve, great to see you, and welcome to the GreenBiz Studio.
Thanks, John. Great to be here.
So I'm going to start. I don't think I'm alone when I say most people would probably think of Cox for all of your communications work. So let's start by filling in the audience a little bit on Cox Cleantech and what you do there.
Yeah, so Cox Cleantech is what is our name for the growth and diversification efforts in the company. So if you think about Cox, founded back in the 1800s, 100 and over 120 years old, family owned, fourth generation led business. We have two major divisions, one in the automotive sector and one in the communications sector. And as we think about what the next 120 years of the future looks like for Cox, it's really the intersection in trying to spin up the next operating divisions of the company at the intersection of what makes really good financial sense and business sense with really the family's passion and values, which is to leave the world a better place. And so it made it a very natural place for us to focus in what we call clean tech to go build and scale these operating businesses. And I define clean tech as businesses that are resource efficient. So the traditional, what you would think of as sustainability, using less and doing more with less, but also in resiliency and adaptation. Just knowing that the world is changing, climate's changing, weather patterns are changing, and you have to build more resilient and sort of adaptable businesses that fit sort of this future.
That's very cool. Yeah, I've also worked for a couple 100-plus-year-old companies, and I know how important it is to think about how they evolve over time. Um, let's dive into a couple specifics here. So I saw one of the major clean tech ventures Cox is invested in is Nexus Circular. I wonder if you could tell me a little bit more about them and how their business fits into Cox's goals in the area.
Yeah, Nexus Circular is one I'm really excited about. We first invested in them back in 2015. They're actually one of the first portfolio companies that we invested at, even before we created the broader Cox Clean Tech endeavor. And so Nexus Circular takes, the 90% of plastics that are not currently recycled. A lot of people don't realize that 90% don't get recycled and then end up in the landfill or even worse places. Nexus can take those previously unrecycled plastics and chemically convert them back into virgin plastic feedstock. And so the idea being that if we can keep plastics, in the economy and out of the oceans and rivers and landfills, that's a great thing. And so, that's why we call it Nexus Circular. It's really part of this circular economy play. What I really like about it is the fact that we're able to produce this plastic feedstock ingredient at a profitable price point versus drilling new oil out of the ground. And so as we think about the plastics problem going on into the future, it'd be fantastic if we didn't have to deal with plastics, but plastics are really good at a lot of things, and you're not going to turn that spigot off. And so this is a way to infinitely recycle those plastics and be able to use them over and over and over again in a similar way like we would use aluminum.
Yeah, that's really exciting, and I think it's an effort that all of us should be rooting for success in over time. The other area I wanted to touch on is sustainable food systems. I think it's on a lot of people's minds right now: food waste, growing food. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how Cox is investing in the agriculture space.
Yeah. I think of agriculture and food systems as, if we think about like the plastics problem, this is one of those things that is really more. It does impact us as humans, but the food issue that we're going to have to deal with as populations increase on the planet is far more closer to home, in making sure that people have sustainable, healthy food to eat. And so, to me, this is one where it's the perfect intersection of that resource efficiency, resiliency, and adaptation that I talked about, of how I think about clean tech, of being able to grow food in a sustainable way, but also decoupling that growing from arbitrary geographic locations where the weather just happens to be right today, and maybe only parts of the weather are right, like the temperature, but you don't have the water that you need to be able to grow. And so, from a resource efficiency standpoint, if you can grow with less water, that's great. If we also can ensure we contain all of the nutrients that are there for the plants and keep those for the plants versus them going up into the air as nitric acid or running down the river and ended up becoming either algae blooms or dead spots, that's a great thing too. And then it also allows us to ensure, you're not susceptible to droughts or too much rain or pest or things like that. And so we're really investing really aggressively into what I call controlled environment agriculture, which is advanced greenhouses. So think, greenhouses that have a very high level of control on the environment around the plant, and that allows us to move that production away from those arbitrary geographies and put it closer to where it's being consumed, which also helps us on the transportation side of things. So I'm really excited about that. I think people get really excited about that in generally too, because everybody knows, everybody's planted a garden or had a plant. And so there's also this tactile connectivity with growing food. And it's just something we all get so much enjoyment out of. And so it's a lot of fun to be able to be providing products that are not only that taste better or better for the planet, but ones that give people a lot of enjoyment as they get to consume them.
That's awesome. I think it's really cool how broadly Cox is investing in these new spaces. So thanks for sharing that with us today. You all just heard from Steve Bradley, Vice President of Clean Tech at Cox Enterprises. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.